Ambassador Chen stood at the window of Unity 7. Looking down at Earth, the blue planet had never looked more beautiful or more vulnerable. 3 years ago, humanity had celebrated when alien ships appeared in the sky. They called themselves the Galactic Accord. They came in peace, they said. They wanted to welcome humanity to the galaxy. Now Chen knew the truth. Peace had a price. The meeting room behind him was silent. 47 alien species sat around a massive circular table. Some looked almost human. Others were so different that Chen struggled to understand how they thought. But they all agreed on one thing. Earth had to pay. High Arbiter Velthor stood at the center of the room. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow under the lights. His voice was calm and measured, like a teacher explaining something obvious to a slow student. The terms are simple, Velthor said. Earth will provide 40% of all rare element deposits from your planet. These elements are necessary for faster-than-light travel. You will also accept our guidance in your planetary development. We will help you avoid the mistakes that young species always make. Chen felt his stomach turn. You mean you want to control us? Velthor smiled. It was not a kind smile. We prefer the term custodial oversight. Many species have benefited from our wisdom. In time, you will understand that this is for your own good. If we refuse, Chen asked, though he already knew the answer. The room's main screen lit up. Chen saw images of 3 different planets. All of them were surrounded by massive alien ships. The cities below looked dark and abandoned. These species chose isolation, Velthor explained. They rejected our generous offer. Now they exist under complete embargo. No trade, no contact. No access to the galactic community. Their people suffer because their leaders were too proud to accept help. One of the images showed a planet covered in storms. Another showed cities that had clearly fallen into decay. The third showed a world where the lights were going out one by one. We do not wish this fate for humanity, Velthor continued. But the choice is yours. You have 30 days to decide. Accept our terms, or accept isolation. There is no third option. Chen looked around the table. Most of the aliens would not meet his eyes. A few looked genuinely sad, but none of them spoke against Velthor. None of them offered humanity a better deal. 30 days, Chen repeated. And then what? Then we will return for your answer. Choose wisely, Ambassador. The galaxy can be a wonderful place for those who cooperate. It can be very lonely for those who do not. The meeting ended. Chen returned to his small quarters on Unity 7 and immediately opened a secure Channel 2. Earth. The president's face appeared on the screen. Looking older than Chen remembered. They want 40% of our resources, Chen said without greeting. And they want control over our development. They are calling it help, but it is blackmail. The president rubbed her eyes. Can we fight them? No. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Our military advisors have run every scenario. We would lose in hours, maybe minutes.
Ow.
Then we negotiate for better terms. Chen shook his head. I tried. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum. Accept their terms or face total isolation. The president was quiet for a long moment. Chen could see her thinking, weighing impossible choices. 30 days. Gather everything you can about the Galactic Accord. Their history, their politics, their previous dealings with other species. There has to be something we can use. Chen wanted to believe that was true. But looking out at the stars, surrounded by civilizations that had existed for thousands of years while humanity was still learning to build fire, he felt very small and very alone. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. The governments tried to keep it secret at first, but someone always talked. Within 48 hours, every person on the planet knew about the ultimatum. The reactions were exactly what Chen had feared. Some people wanted to fight, even though they would lose. Others wanted to surrender immediately and take whatever terms they could get. Politicians argued. Religious leaders prayed. Scientists worked frantically to find some technology that might level the playing field. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo sat in her office at the University of Lagos, watching the chaos unfold on her screens. She was a game theorist, someone who studied how people and groups made decisions. She had spent years analyzing conflicts, negotiations, and power dynamics. Something about this situation bothered her. The Galactic Accord was powerful, yes. They had technology and numbers on their side, but they were taking an enormous risk by giving humanity time to respond. Why 30 days? Why not just take what they wanted? Sarah began digging through every piece of information humanity had gathered about the Galactic Accord: trade agreements, historical records, cultural exchanges. The aliens had been surprisingly open about their history, probably because they never thought humanity would find anything useful in it. She worked for 3 days straight, barely sleeping. Her colleagues brought her food and coffee, but she barely noticed. She was looking for a pattern, something that would explain why the Accord operated the way it did. On the third night, she founded 23 species. Over the past 3,000 years, the Galactic Accord had made similar demands to 23 different emerging civilizations. The terms were always the same. Give us your resources. Accept our guidance. Submit to our wisdom, and every single species had accepted. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. 23 for 23. A perfect record. The Accord had never failed to get what they wanted, but that meant they had never been seriously challenged. They had never faced a species that said no and made it stick. Sarah picked up her phone and called the president's office. She did not know if her idea would work. She did not even know if she could convince anyone to try it. But she knew one thing for certain. Humanity's only chance was to do something the Galactic Accord had never seen before. Something that would change the game entirely. The countdown had begun. 27 days remained. The United Nations building had never been so full. Every nation on Earth had sent representatives. The room buzzed with arguments in dozens of languages. Translators worked frantically to keep up. Ambassador Chen watched from the side of the room. He had returned to Earth to help with the decision, but so far, no one could agree on anything. We have to accept their terms, the delegate from Germany was saying. We cannot fight them. We cannot hide from them. If we refuse, our children will suffer. The Russian delegate stood up, anger clear on his face. So we just surrender? Give them everything they want? Become slaves to aliens who think they are better than us? No one said slavery, the German delegate shot back. They are offering guidance, help. Many civilizations have accepted and thrived under someone else's control, the Chinese delegate added quietly. Is that really thriving? The American president stood. The room fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what the most powerful nation on Earth would say. We have consulted with our military leaders, she began. Every war game scenario ends the same way. If we fight, we lose. Quickly and completely. The Galactic Accord has weapons we cannot match and shields we cannot break. So we surrender, someone muttered. I did not say that, the president continued. I said we cannot win a military fight. But there may be other options. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo entered the room at that moment. She had been invited to present her findings, though many delegates did not understand why a university professor was involved in military decisions. Sarah set up her presentation with shaking hands. She had never spoken to so many world leaders before, but she believed in what she had discovered. I have analyzed 3,000 years of Galactic Accord history, she began. I found something interesting. The Accord has made demands like this 23 times before. Every time, the species accepted. Every single time. It proves we should accept too, someone called out. Or Sarah said, it proves they have never faced real resistance. They have a system that works, so they keep using it. But systems that never face challenges become rigid, predictable. We brought up her first slide. It showed a timeline of the Accord's expansion. The Galactic Accord grew by offering protection and technology to younger species. But over time, the price for that protection increased. What started as mutual cooperation became something else. A pattern of control. What does this matter? The French delegate asked. They are still more powerful than us. Power is not just about weapons, Sarah replied. It is about leverage. About understanding what your opponent values and what they fear. She clicked to the next slide. It showed economic data, cultural exchanges, and political structures within the Galactic Accord. The Accord's economy depends on constant expansion. They need new resources, new markets, new species to join. But more importantly, they need their own citizens to believe that what they are doing is right and necessary. Chen began to understand where Sarah was going. You think we can turn their own people against them? Not against them, Sarah corrected. But we can make them question. The Accord citizens have access to information. They study other cultures. When we made first contact, we shared everything with them. Our history, our literature, our philosophy, every song, every story, every idea humanity has ever had. She paused, letting that sink in. We gave them the complete record of human civilization, including every time we fought against tyranny, every revolution, every moment when someone stood up and said no to power. The room was silent now. Everyone was listening. I have a plan, Sarah said, but it requires something humanity has never done before. We need complete global unity. Every nation, every government, every person. We all have to agree. The Brazilian delegate laughed. That is impossible. We have never agreed on anything. Then we lose, Sarah said simply. The Accord is counting on us being divided. They expect us to argue and fight among ourselves while the deadline approaches. They have seen it 23 times before. She clicked to her final slide. It was blank except for 3 words. The Terran Gambit.
What is that?
The president asked. Our answer, Sarah said. But I need 72 hours of absolute secrecy to refine it. And then I need every leader in this room to agree to it, no matter how crazy it sounds. The Japanese delegates stood. You want us to give you complete authority to decide Earth's future? No, Sarah said. I want you to trust that sometimes the best way to win is not to play the game the way your opponent expects. The room erupted into arguments again. Some delegates thought Sarah was insane. Others thought she was Earth's only hope. The debate raged for hours. Finally, the Secretary General called for order. Dr. Okonkwo, he said, you have your 72 hours, but you must present your plan to every major government leader in a closed session. If even one nation refuses to participate, we cannot move forward. Sarah nodded. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice was steady. I understand. She left the room and immediately assembled her team. She needed economists who understood galactic trade, psychologists who could predict how alien populations would react, historians who knew every example of resistance in human history, and most importantly, she needed people who could think differently than anyone in the Galactic Accord expected. For 3 days, they worked in a secure facility deep underground. No communications in or out, no leaks, no distractions. Sarah barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those images of blockaded planets, dark cities, suffering people. That could be Earth's future if she was wrong, but if she was right, humanity might do something no species had ever done before. They might change the entire galaxy. On the morning of the 4th day, Sarah emerged from the facility. She looked exhausted but determined. The secure session of world leaders had been scheduled. Every president, every prime minister, every king and chancellor and premier had agreed to attend. What she was about to propose would shock them. Some would call it suicide. Others would call it brilliant. But everyone would understand that it was humanity's last real choice. Chen met her outside the conference room. Are you ready? Sarah took a deep breath. No, but we are out of time. Inside, the world's leaders waited. The room was sealed. No recording devices, no staff. Just the people who would decide humanity's fate. Sarah stood before them and began to speak. What she proposed was so unexpected, so bold, so completely insane that at first, no one believed she was serious. But as she explained the reasoning, the strategy, the potential outcomes, something changed in the room. Leaders who had been ready to surrender began to sit up straighter. Leaders who had wanted to fight began to nod slowly. By the time Sarah finished her presentation, The room was silent. The President of the United States was the first to speak. If we do this, there is no going back. No, Sarah agreed. There is not. We could lose everything. Or we could show the galaxy what humanity really means. One by one, the leaders voted. It was not unanimous at first. But as the holdouts heard the arguments, saw the conviction in Sarah's eyes, understood what was truly at stake, they changed their votes. With 72 hours left until the deadline, Earth had made its decision. Now they just had to tell the galaxy. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest room Ambassador Chen had ever seen. It could hold representatives from all 47 member species, plus observers and media from across the galaxy. Today, it was completely full. High Arbiter Velthor sat at the center of the raised platform, looking confident and relaxed. He had done this 23 times before. He knew how it would end. Some species begged for better terms. Some accepted with dignity. A few even pretended they wanted the oversight, but they all said yes. Chen walked to the speaker's platform in the center of the room. Every eye in the chamber was on him. Cameras from 1,000 worlds broadcast the moment across the galaxy. This was always good publicity for the Accord. Another young species accepting their place in the galactic order. Ambassador Chen Velthar said warmly, "Welcome. I trust Earth has made its decision." "We have," Chen replied. His voice was steady, though his heart was racing. "Excellent. Please share your government's answer with the Council." Chen took a deep breath. Behind him, on screens throughout the chamber, the image of Earth appeared. The blue planet slowly rotating in space. Home to 8 billion people who were all watching this moment. "The people of Earth have carefully considered the Galactic Accord's offer," Chen began. "We have debated. We have calculated. We have examined every option available to us." Velthor nodded encouragingly. "Very thorough. I am pleased to hear it. We have decided to refuse your terms." The chamber fell silent. Velthera's smile froze on his face. "I am sorry," he said slowly. "I do not think I heard you correctly." "You heard me perfectly," Chen said. "Earth refuses to surrender 40% of our resources. We refuse to accept custodial oversight. We refuse your terms completely." "Okay." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some aliens looked shocked. Others looked angry. A few looked genuinely confused. Velthar's expression hardened. "Then you choose isolation. You choose to see your people suffer. This is your final answer?" "No," Chen said. "That is not our final answer. We have more to say." He clicked a control, and the screens changed. Now, they showed not just Earth, but the entire solar system. The sun, the planets, the asteroid belt, the outer reaches where human ships had barely begun to explore. Earth hereby withdraws its application for membership in the Galactic Accord, Chen continued. "We also withdraw from all pending trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, and diplomatic relations." "You cannot withdraw what has not been granted," Velthar said sharply. "You are not members. You are applicants. And now, you are rejected applicants who will live under embargo." "We are not finished," Chen said calmly. "Earth is making an additional declaration. We are designating the Sol system as a closed nature preserve. We are imposing a voluntary isolation period of 500 years. Now the chamber erupted. Aliens were standing, shouting in languages Chen did not understand. Velthar was trying to restore order, but no one was listening. Chen raised his voice. "For 500 years, no Earthship will leave the Sol system. No trade will be conducted. No technology will be exchanged. Humanity will develop on its own timeline or fail on its own terms. We will seal ourselves away from the galaxy." "This is madness," Velthor shouted. "You cannot survive 500 years alone. You need our technology. You need our guidance, do we?" Chen asked. "Or do you need us to think that?" He clicked the control again. New data appeared on the screens. Charts, graphs, analyses that Dr. Okonkwo's team had prepared. 23 species before us received this same offer. Everyone accepted. but we noticed something interesting. The species that accepted your guidance are thriving, yes, but they are not independent. They are not free. They are parts of your machine, providing resources and labor and markets for Accord interests. We provide protection, Belther said. We provide advancement. We provide dependence, Chen countered. You offer technology they could develop themselves given time. You offer protection from threats that mostly come from you. And in exchange, you take their resources, their autonomy, and their future. The chamber was quieter now. Some of the aliens were listening carefully. Chen noticed that representatives from some of the newer Accord members looked uncomfortable. Humanity has something the Accord forgot to account for, Chen continued. We have a long history of choosing freedom over security. We have fought wars to escape tyranny. We have sacrificed comfort for independence. We would rather fail on our own terms than succeed under someone else's control. Pretty words, Belthor said coldly. But they will not feed your people when your resources run out. They will not protect you from threats you cannot imagine. Maybe not, Chen agreed. But they will let us sleep at night knowing we chose our own path. He clicked the control one final time. This was the moment Dr. Okonkwo had planned so carefully. Before we seal our borders, humanity is transmitting one final gift to the galaxy. We are sending our complete cultural archive to every planet in Accord space and beyond. Not to your governments. To your people directly. The screens showed the transmission beginning. Millions of books, films, songs, and historical records streaming out from Earth in every direction. The data packets were designed to bypass government filters and reach civilian populations directly. We are sending every story of human resistance to oppression, Chen explained. Every song about freedom, every philosophical argument for self-determination, every historical example of people who said no to power and made it stick. Belther stood, his face dark with anger. This is a violation of Accord protocols. You are attempting to destabilize our member governments, Chen said. We are sharing culture which you always claim to encourage. We are giving your people the same choice you gave us. The chance to decide what they really believe about power and freedom and the relationship between the strong and the weak. Your people will regret this, Velthar warned. 500 years is a long time to be alone. It is, Chen agreed. But it is our choice, and that makes all the difference. He bowed slightly to the chamber, then turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, chaos erupted again. Aliens were arguing, checking their data feeds, trying to understand what had just happened. Chen reached the door and paused. He looked back at Velthar one last time. He taught us an important lesson, High Arbiter. You showed us that the galaxy respects power. So we are choosing the one power you cannot take from us. The power to say no. He left the chamber. The broadcast continued, showing the confused and angry faces of the Galactic Accord leadership. But it also showed something else. On planets across the galaxy, ordinary citizens were receiving Earth's transmission. They were reading human history. They were listening to human music. They were learning about revolutions and independence and the price of freedom. And some of them were starting to ask questions. The governments did not want to answer. Back on Unity 7, Chen watched Earth disappear from view as his ship prepared to return home. In 3 days, the barriers would go up. Humanity would be alone, but they would be free. Dr. Okonkwo's voice came over his communicator. Chen, are you watching the Accord news feeds? No, what is happening? 3 member species have just issued formal statements calling for an investigation into Accord first contact procedures. Their citizens are demanding answers about how the Accord treats emerging civilizations. Chen smiled. It is working. It is just starting, Sarah replied. Now we wait and see if humanity's gamble pays off. Chen looked at the stars one last time before the barrier would close them off. 500 years, he whispered. I hope we are ready. High Arbiter Velthor stared at the reports piling up on his desk. Each one brought worse news than the last. In 3 days, humanity's cultural transmission had reached every corner of Accord space, and people were actually reading it. This is unprecedented, his assistant said nervously. She was from Kelmar 5, a species that had joined the Accord 200 years ago. We have never had citizens question first contact procedures before, Belthor threw one of the reports across the room, because no one has ever been foolish enough to refuse our guidance. Earth should be preparing for isolation and suffering. Instead, they have started a public relations campaign. Should we block the transmission? It is too late. The data is everywhere now. If we try to suppress it, we will only confirm what the humans are suggesting, that we have something to hide. Another aide entered the room. He looked frightened. Hi, Arbiter. We have a situation. The representative from Trell 9 has called for an emergency council session. He wants to discuss revising first contact protocols. Velthar felt his control slipping. Trell 9 was one of the oldest Accord members. If they started questioning the system, others would follow. Schedule it, he said through clenched teeth. But make sure our allies are prepared to vote against any changes. As his staff hurried to obey, Velthor pulled up the Human Cultural Archive on his personal screen. He had avoided looking at it, dismissing it as primitive nonsense. But now he needed to understand what was causing such chaos. He selected a random file. It was a document called the Declaration of Independence, written by humans, hundreds of years ago. Velthor began to read. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all beings are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Velthar stopped reading. The words made him uncomfortable in a way he did not fully understand. He tried another file. This one was a speech by someone named Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. He closed the files. No wonder Accord citizens were reacting strongly. These ideas were dangerous. They suggested that what the Accord had built was wrong. That strength did not give the right to control others. On the planet Morio 3, a world that had joined the Accord 50 years ago, protests were growing. Thousands of Morians gathered in their capital city, holding signs with human words translated into their language. We chose submission. One protest leader was saying to the crowd, but was it really a choice? Were we told the truth about our options? Did we surrender our future because we were wise, or because we were afraid? The Morian government tried to disperse the crowds, but they were peaceful. They were not breaking any laws. They were simply asking questions and sharing information from Earth's archive. Similar scenes were playing out on 11 other Accord worlds. Not every planet, but enough to worry the leadership. Citizens were forming discussion groups, studying human history, and comparing it to their own first contact experiences. The emergency council session was tense. Representatives from all 47 species gathered, but the usual cooperation was absent. The chamber felt divided in a way Velthor had never experienced. The Trell 9 representative stood to speak. He was old, even by Trell standards, and his voice carried authority. I have served the Accord for 90 years, he began. I've always believed we acted with honor and wisdom, but the humans have forced me to reconsider our methods. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Velthor wanted to interrupt, but protocol required him to let the speaker finish. We tell emerging species they must accept our guidance or face isolation. We present this as their only choice. But is this true? Or have we created a system that benefits us at their expense? The system has maintained peace for 3,000 years, Velthar argued. It has allowed civilizations to develop safely under our protection. Protection from what? A voice called out. It was the representative from Novar7, another senior member. Most of the threats young species face come from their neighbors in the Accord. If we truly wanted to help them, we would offer genuine partnership, not coerced submission. Velthar felt the ground shifting beneath him. These were not radical outsiders. These were respected, long-standing members of the Accord. The humans have rejected our help, he said firmly. In 500 years, we will see how their pride serves them. They will beg to return under our terms. Will they? The Trell 9 representative pulled up economic data on the chamber screens. Our economists have analyzed Earth's self-isolation. It creates a 500-year gap in potential trade and cultural exchange. Not just for Earth, but for us. We lose access to human innovation, human art, human perspectives. This is not a victory for the Accord. It is a mutual loss. The data was damning. Earth's isolation would cost the Accord trillions in lost opportunities over the next 5 centuries. Not because Earth was wealthy now, but because of what they might become without Accord interference. More importantly, the Novar 7 representative added, "We cannot enforce compliance without revealing ourselves as the tyrants the humans have painted us to be. Our own citizens are watching. If we blockade Earth or threaten them, we prove their point." Lothar had not considered this angle. The Accord's power had always rested on 2 pillars: military strength and moral authority. The humans had found a way to attack the second pillar without challenging the first. "We could wait them out," Velthor suggested. "Let them struggle alone. Eventually, they will return asking for help." "And if they do not?" the Kelmer 5 representative asked. She had been quiet until now, but Velthor noticed she was not defending him as she usually did. What if they succeed? What if they develop faster than light travel on their own? What if they create a new model for species development that does not require submission to ancient powers? The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to say it, but everyone was thinking it. Earth had exposed a fundamental weakness in the Accord system. It only worked if everyone believed there was no alternative. Reports continued to flood in during the session. For more Accord worlds had seen protests. 2 member governments had issued public statements calling for first contact reform. The Accord's reputation was taking damage with every hour that passed. "We need to respond," Velthor said desperately. "We cannot let one primitive species destabilize 3,000 years of tradition." "Perhaps the tradition needed destabilizing," the Trell 9 representative said quietly. "Perhaps we have been doing this wrong for 3,000 years and we're too proud to admit it." The vote came quickly. 28 species supported investigating first contact procedures. 15 opposed. 4 abstained. It was not the crushing defeat Velthor feared, but it was enough. The investigation would happen. As the session ended, representatives clustered in small groups, whispering urgently. Velthar noticed that some of the species who had voted to support him looked uncomfortable, as if they were questioning their own choice. He returned to his office and found his assistant waiting with another report. "Hi, Arbiter. 3 species have formally broken ranks. They have issued public statements supporting Earth's right to choose isolation." "Which species?" She listed them. All 3 were mid-level members, not powerful enough to threaten the Accord, but influential enough to matter. Velthor sat down heavily. In 72 hours, Earth had accomplished what seemed impossible. They had not defeated the Accord militarily. They had not outnegotiated the Accord diplomatically. They had simply made the Accord defeat itself by broadcasting their response to the entire galaxy, by framing the conflict as freedom versus control, by appealing directly to Accord citizens rather than governments. Earth had changed the nature of the game. "What do we do now?" his assistant asked. Velthar did not have an answer. For the first time in his long career, he genuinely did not know what came next. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo watched the Accord news feeds with satisfaction. Her gamble was working better than she had dared hope. The galaxy was debating. Citizens were questioning. Governments were defending themselves. "We did it," one of her team members said excitedly. "We actually did it. Started it," Sarah corrected. "But we will not be here to see how it ends. In 500 years, humanity will emerge into a galaxy we helped to change. I hope they are ready for it." Ambassador Chen joined her at the window. Together, they watched as the final transport ships returned from Accord space. In hours, the barrier would activate. Humanity would be alone. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Chen asked. Sarah smiled. "I think we made the only choice we could live with. And that is what matters most." Now 6 months had passed since Earth sealed itself away from the galaxy. Ambassador Chen stood in the observation deck of Unity 7, now permanently stationed as a guardian at the edge of the Sol system. The barrier was invisible to the naked eye, but instruments showed it clearly. A shell of human technology marking the boundary between Earth and everything beyond. Chen received daily reports from both sides of the barrier. Inside, humanity was adapting to isolation. Scientists were working frantically on technologies they could no longer buy from aliens. Economists were restructuring trade around Earth-only resources. It was hard, but people were determined. Outside, galaxy was changing in ways no one had predicted. The alert chime brought Chen's attention to an incoming transmission. It was marked with Galactic Accord priority codes, but the sender was unexpected. High Arbiter Velthor had resigned 3 weeks ago. The new High Arbiter was Trelnine's former representative, a reformer who had called for the investigation. Chen opened the transmission. Ambassador Chen, the new High Arbiter, said. Her name was Cyrilla, and she looked tired but determined. I wanted to inform you personally. The Galactic Accord Council has passed the Terra Protocols. Chen felt his heart race. The Terra Protocols? A complete restructuring of first contact procedures. Named in honor of your world, Cyrilla pulled up a document. No emerging species will ever again face coercive terms for joining the Accord. Resources cannot be demanded as a condition of membership. Custodial oversight has been abolished. Species retain full sovereignty over their development. Chen could barely believe what he was hearing. The Council actually passed this? By a vote of 39-8. The resistance crumbled once our citizens made their voices heard. Turns out that when people across the galaxy read about human concepts of freedom and self-determination, they started asking why their own governments did not operate on those principles. Cyrilla smiled sadly. You changed us, Ambassador. Not with weapons or threats, but with ideas. Your species showed us what we had forgotten. That true strength lies not in controlling others, but in respecting their right to choose. What happened to Velthor? Chen asked, stepped down under pressure from member governments. Several of his close allies also resigned. There is talk of holding them accountable for abuses during past first contact situations. It will take years to sort out, but the process has begun. Chen thought about all the species that had accepted Accord terms over the centuries. Will this help the civilizations already under Accord control? We are working on that. The Terra Protocols include provisions for renegotiating existing agreements. Species that were coerced can now petition for revised terms. Some may even choose to leave the Accord entirely. Cyrilla paused. It will be messy. Change always is. But it is necessary. And Earth's isolation. Your 500-year period will be respected. But with one request, if you are willing to hear it. Chen waited. We would like to maintain cultural exchange with humanity even during your isolation. No technology transfer. No trade. Just art, music, literature, and ideas. The galaxy has fallen in love with human culture. Your stories are being studied in schools across Accord space. Your music plays on 1,000 worlds. Your philosophy is debated in universities I have never even heard of. Chen smiled. This was something Dr. Okonkwo had hoped for, but had not dared to expect. I will need to consult with Earth's government, Chen said. But I believe they would welcome continued cultural exchange. Ideas should be free, even when borders are closed. After the transmission ended, Chen contacted Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. She was now Earth's lead strategist for long-term planning, helping humanity prepare for the centuries of isolation ahead.
Is Sarah?
You need to see this, Chen said, forwarding the transmission. He waited while she watched it. When her face reappeared on the screen, she was crying. We did it, she whispered. We actually changed the galaxy. You did it, Chen corrected. This was your plan, no, Sarah said firmly. Humanity did it. Every person who chose freedom over security, every nation that agreed to stand together, every scientist working to make isolation survivable. We did this together. She wiped her eyes. Chen, do you realize what this means? In 500 years, when humanity reemerges, we will not be joining the galaxy as supplicants. We will be returning as equals. As the species that changed how first contact works across the entire galaxy. Chen looked out at the stars. If we survive that long, we will, Sarah said confidently. Humans are stubborn. It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. We said no to the most powerful alliance in the galaxy because we believed freedom was worth more than safety. That kind of stubbornness will carry us through 5 centuries of isolation. Over the following months, Earth's government agreed to Sorella's proposal. Cultural exchange would continue. Earth would share its stories, and the galaxy would share its own. No technology, no resources, but ideas could flow freely. The first alien story arrived 3 weeks later. It was from a species called the Vren, and it told of their own struggle for independence 300 years ago. Reading it, Chen realized that Earth's stand had given other species permission to tell their own stories of resistance and survival. More stories came. Poems from worlds Chen had never heard of. Songs and languages humanity was still learning to understand. Philosophy from civilizations older than human writing. It was not the instant gratification of alien technology, but it was something deeper. A conversation between minds across the stars. On Earth, the isolation was hard, but manageable. Scientists made breakthroughs they might never have attempted if alien technology was readily available. Artists created works inspired by humanity's bold choice. Children grew up learning that their ancestors had chosen freedom. When it would have been easier to submit, a new identity was forming. Humanity was becoming the species that said no. Chen watched all of this from Unity 7. He was old now. He was too old to see the end of the isolation period. But he could see its beginning, and that was enough. One day, a message arrived from a species humanity had never heard of. They called themselves the Krell, and they were just making first contact with the Galactic Accord. The message was simple. We heard about Earth. We heard about the choice you made. We are facing similar terms from the Accord. Your example gives us courage. We are going to say no to. Thank you for showing us that we can. Chen forwarded the message to Sarah. Her response was immediate. It is spreading. The idea that species have the right to choose their own path. Earth started something that will outlive all of us. Chen smiled. Good. That is exactly what we hoped for. Years passed. Chen eventually retired, returning to Earth to spend his final days under the sky of his home world. Dr. Okonkwo continued her work, training the next generation of strategists and thinkers, who would guide humanity through the long isolation. The galaxy continued to change. The Terra protocols were refined and strengthened. More species chose independence over immediate membership in the Accord. Some failed, it was true, but others thrived, developing in their own unique ways without Accord interference. And everywhere, on every world that knew of Earth, humanity's story was told. The species that chose freedom. The species that changed the galaxy by saying one simple word. No, on Earth, monuments were built to commemorate the decision. Not monuments to warriors or conquerors, but to the diplomats, scientists, and thinkers who found a way to win without fighting. Ambassador Chen, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, and countless others who made the choice possible. The countdown continued. 500 years was a long time, but humanity was patient now. They had learned that some things were worth waiting for in the final years of Chen's life. He gave an interview to a young journalist who asked him if he ever regretted the choice. Every day, Chen admitted, I think about the technology we could have had, the medical advances that might have saved people we lost, the easy answers to hard problems, but, the journalist prompted. But I also think about what we would have lost. Our independence. Our right to fail on our own terms. Our ability to look at ourselves in the mirror and know we chose our own path. Chen smiled. And I remember that we did not just save ourselves. We changed the entire galaxy. We showed them that there is another way. That is worth more than any technology. The journalist published the interview. It was read across Earth and transmitted beyond the barrier as part of the cultural exchange. On distant worlds, alien species read Chen's words and understood. Freedom was not free. It required sacrifice and courage, and the willingness to stand alone. But it was worth it, as Chen took his final breath. Surrounded by family and looking up at the stars through Earth's atmosphere, he smiled. Humanity had 500 years of isolation ahead, but they would emerge into a galaxy they had helped to change for the better. and that was worth everything. The story of how humanity said no to the most powerful alliance in the galaxy became legend. It was told on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 languages, with 1,000 variations. But the core remained the same. When faced with an impossible choice between submission and isolation, humanity chose a third option. They chose themselves. And in doing so, they showed the galaxy what true strength really meant. Not the strength to conquer, but the strength to remain free.